Good morning, Honors 10. This is your last class before Easter. So, congratulations, you've made it till spring break at least. That means that any work that I assign today should be done today. And then any late work from weeks 1, 2, or this week, week 3, any late work at all needs to be in by tomorrow. That's Thursday at 11:59 p.m. I'm not going to take any late work after that because we are all going to be on spring break. I'm going to do all my grading on Friday and get all those grades in, and then I don't want you to have to be working on makeup work or anything like that over spring break, so all of it should be in tomorrow 11:59, so anything from week 1, 2, or 3. This particular class, I know you guys have been very good about getting your work in, so there's hardly any missing work even out there, so that shouldn't be too much of an issue. But that brings me to today. You have a journal, which you know about. You do those every English class day. You have your grammar if you didn't finish it on Monday. Some of you are done with it already. Congratulations, so you don't have to do it today. Excuse me. So if your grammar, if you didn't finish it on Monday, if you only did part of it, or if you didn't do any of it and you pushed it off until today, make sure that gets done. And then the last thing that you have to do is a close read. And I'm going to make this video pretty short because your close read might take you a little bit longer to do today. But I think it's a really important one. I think it's super, super interesting. So you read the first read on The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. And basically, what this whole thing is about, we're still talking about science and the ethics of science and things like that. This is kind of about two different stories in one. There's an author, Rebecca, and she's writing about this woman named Henrietta Lacks. And basically, Henrietta Lacks, if you weren't sure, you should have picked this up kind of from the article. Scientists were trying to come up with a way to make cells live longer in petri dishes so that they could perform more studies and use them in different experiments and things like that, because every time that they removed cells, they only lived for a few days and then they died. Until a woman named Henrietta Lacks showed up to a doctor's office because she had cervical cancer, and that doctor took some cell samples that were cancerous and put them in these conditions that were favorable enough to the point where they started reproducing without stopping. Now, at no point did she give her consent to have any samples taken, and her family wasn't informed of this, and she wasn't informed of this either. That was somewhat of a common practice at the time. This happened back in the 1950s. But the family wasn't informed of anything until 1975. So this happened in the 1950s. They took these cells, realized that they were living forever, and the scientist decided to obviously share this with others. This is a great scientific discovery. This is a good example of open science. These cells became HeLa cells because they used her first and last two initials, and they were reproduced and distributed, sold actually, all across the world. And today it's estimated, I want to say it's in the article, that there's 50 million metric tons of her cells that have been reproduced since they were originally harvested. Now, you could think about the fact that if they're selling those to other science institutes, that they've also made quite a bit of money on this. That's one interesting factor to look at. But also another is that now all of these people have a lot of genetic information that could be or should be private. Excuse me. And her family wasn't informed until later, and she was given almost no credit in the science world until actually fairly recently. This author, Rebecca, kind of brought her to national attention and to the forefront of the normal person, not necessarily just science. A lot of people in science knew what HeLa cells were and maybe knew of her, but most people didn't know kind of her life. And so she brought forward this human being instead of just these cells. And as a result of that, she's raised a lot of questions now about if it was ethical to kind of take those cells or to use those cells. Those cells now have been used to do things like gene mapping, cloning, polio vaccines, chemotherapy, IVF, all of these crazy, awesome things that we think of as scientific advancements came initially because of these cells from Henrietta Lacks. And without them, we might not be nearly as far off and as far advanced in science as we currently are. So it's kind of, we have to weigh this out with scientific advancement versus was it ethically right to take something or to even continue now to use this these DNA samples. And in fact, when they're kind of gene mapping, you have to think that her kids share these same genes, and so a lot of people are now privy to this information about her kids' genetic makeup that maybe they're not comfortable with and comfortable having that kind of information out there. So it's something to definitely consider, what was right and what was wrong. And also within this, it's very interesting that the author kind of infuses her own story in there and how she learned about everything and kind of the relationship that she ends up forming with Henrietta Lacks' daughter, Deborah. Excuse me, I told you this video was going to be a little bit shorter, so here we go. What I want you to do is I want you to look at the last 3 of these skill focused questions. The first 2 are all about kind of technical terms and definitions and things like that. Those are not the main focus that I want you to focus on. I want you to look at numbers 3, 4, and 5. And choose 2 of them. I'm not going to do one with you so that I can leave you a choice between which ones you want to do. Choose 2, either 3 and 4, 4 and 5, 3 and 5. To annotate and highlight. And then you're going to have a writing prompt. Your writing prompt is going to look different than the one that's in here. That's not the one that you're going to do. Basically, you're writing an opinion piece on whether you believe that it's right to use her cells without consent. You are welcome to use, or you should use, kind of quotes and things like that from the article that you read, but you're also welcome to use outside sources, do a little bit of digging, do a little bit of research to kind of form your opinion. So this is an opinion one. It's what you think, what you believe. It's not going to necessarily be like this is what the evidence is pointing to. It's your opinion based on the evidence that you've been presented with and any kind of also possibly outside research. So that's it. That's all let's do today. And then it is spring break. So have a happy Easter. Get outside, get some fresh air in the next week or so. Chill out, relax, and be prepared to start back April 20th. If you have questions, let me know.